Hey everyone, welcome back, Coast to Coast Podcast. Me and Tori, we're here, we're ready. We're gonna be talking some hockey, some three stars, everybody's favorite part, and everything like that. So we're here, episode
Not
37. It's going good. It's going good. How is it going with you?
too bad. Kind of just ready to get into it. We've got a couple topics that I'm kind of excited about today. So, with that being said, let's do it.
Yeah.
I know the first one I had put up there was Columbus, and for anyone that has paid attention or listened to some of the prior shows, specifically when Liney got traded there, it's funny because a lot of places where I look for information, or where I hear information are speculating or are suggesting or are linking Columbus to trying to acquire and add centers. And it's
Still?
just funny to me, yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's
I
funny
haven't
to
heard that.
me that they traded Dubois away. They acquired Domi, and he's not playing at center. Koivu signed there, and he retired.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to me, like, did they make a mistake in the sense doing what they did when they did it?
Yeah, maybe because Koivu retired after the trade, I think, right?
Right after the trade, yeah.
Yeah, so that maybe an unfortunate timing on the GM's part there, but
I
it's
feel like the GM told him you're going to the taxi squad. He said, "No, you're keeping me on the team, or I'm going home." And he
oh
said,
really?
"Well, we have to." And that's my gut feel.
Yeah, I thought it
I
was.
mean, look what Spezza did with the when the Leafs put him on waivers. His agent came out and said, if anyone else claims him, he's going to retire. He's
Yeah.
either playing for Toronto or nowhere else. Koivu
Hmm.
could have said the same thing, like, or it could have been part of the agreement. Yes, I'll sign with you in Columbus, but handshake agreement, I will not leave the main roster, and if I do, I retire.
It's
So
potential. Yeah, it's also like who knows
that's my
what
feeling.
maybe. My gut feeling off that situation was that he just didn't like playing there, or the whole COVID thing was becoming too much. And like you saw it in baseball a little bit, people just said "f this" halfway through the season. Well, Jonas Cespedes was a prime example of that. Like, just kind of like fuck this and peacing out. So that was my read of the situation. But like you said, we don't know these things. Like, could have gone any which
I think
way.
it's honestly a mix of the two.
Yeah, very well. And
It's
like
probably a combination of the two.
maybe he got there. He's playing for Torts now. He's like, he's a veteran. He's been around the block. He doesn't have to put up with it really, and the stress of what's been going on
Mm.
in that locker room seems to be a ongoing issue for them. And after somewhat of a decent start to the season, they're kind of starting to slip down the standings slowly but surely. Their goalies aren't playing the
But
way
if
they
you
were last year, at
no,
least.
Embers Lincoln's hurt
Fair
too,
enough.
so
Yeah.
that doesn't help. But some local Columbus writers and whatnot have just basically been suggesting that the atmosphere or the attitude around the team has changed,
Mhm.
and when they try to summarize it or when they try to put words to what they're feeling, they're suggesting that the team is just kind of over it, like the message is old, and they're just kind of playing to get to the next coach. And it's
Yeah.
not that Torts isn't a good coach, but it just seems. And these are the local writers. These are guys that are on the team every day that know way more than a lot of other people would, right? Or at
Yeah,
least
they
have a
have their
better
ear
read
to
on
the
that.
beat for sure.
And like they're not in the rooms and stuff anymore like they would be before. So that's slightly different, I do
Hmm.
suppose. But still, like if they're suggesting that kind of stuff, and that's what I said when they first got traded, as I felt like now was the time with the trade to be like, yes, Torts, you did a great job for us. Thank you. We know that you'll go on and find a soft landing spot and be fine, but we're just going to change the message
Hmm.
now. We were Dubois, the two-way defensive, whatever team. Now we're going Liney. We're going offense. We're going scoring. We're going young goalies. We're building young, and we'll
Yeah,
see what the next
it must be. It
chapter
must
is.
be at this point just waiting for the off season. You'd think, right? Right out this crappy season that is COVID, but it sucks because they are, in theory, still in the hunt of this division. It's getting further and further
Well, they were
back, but
talking about it on the radio, and I don't recall who they were talking about exactly. I'm scrambling to think about it, but basically, they were saying that one of the problems is that if you fire a coach and you bring in another coach, they have to do a
oh yeah,
14-day quarantine.
I heard this too.
So,
It
like,
went on the Buffalo side of things.
oh, that's who it was, Buffalo, yeah. And they were saying, like, do you just ride it out? Because if you bring in the AHL coach who's in the smaller bubble or whatever, who can come up, doesn't have to do the same quarantine, but he has, I think, with 3 or 5 games NHL
Yeah,
experience
that was
or
Buffalo
professional experience or
specifically. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. And then, yeah. So, like, or do you fire a
Yeah.
guy, bring a new guy in, wait 2 weeks, and then start him
It's
with the new
so
messaging?
hard
By then,
too
is it might as well wait?
because you're in this stretch of the season. I think I was watching a handful of games. I think this was 2 nights ago. I'm watching one game and they're like, "Hey, this team, yeah, they got 15 games in this month or something. 15 games in the month of March. They're over 31 days." I'm like, "Holy, like that's a lot." And then I switched to another game. Sure enough,
Mhm.
they say the same exact stat again. This team, oh yeah, they're playing 15 games this month. Like, I think it's a common theme, 15 games. So if you're having to go through that issue of a coach for 2 weeks, you don't have a coach really that, or the one you want at least that has to go through quarantine, then they're missing 8 games, which really is like what 15% of the season, and that's a
Yeah.
big part. And
And that's before they can get their message going. So
yeah,
that's before they can even
exactly.
start the dig, basically. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, you might as well just let it run, let the course run. But
Mhm.
I mean, Buffalo specific, they're gonna have to figure out what they're doing with Skinner, but that's a different topic in
Well,
itself.
yeah, we can save that one for next week or a week. Hopefully, we see something that's just
We
a.
could do a whole podcast on the Buffalo Sabres.
We'll save Jesse the trouble from that.
Exactly. We'll
but
tease them for a while.
yeah, I think I'm with you though. There's something that's going to be happening with Columbus coming up, and I think there's going to be a few teams in that same kind of boat. I know here in Vancouver, I don't have the benefit of listening to sports radio as much anymore with Vancouver, not doing the commute, but also because they axed the sports radio here.
Yep.
Um, I would assume that if that were the case, that same kind of conversation would be happening. I know a lot of people we expected Vancouver to take a step back a little bit. They went deep last year, the step back, but to see him go back this far, I don't know. I think the same kind of conversations could be applied to a bunch of different teams right now.
Mm-hmm. And one thing you made me think of there, just when you're talking about the schedules and missing a certain amount of games, one thing I just wanted to kind of step off the trail here for a second and just touch on the Leafs quick, is Elliot Friedman was talking about it on the broadcast last night, and there's like a soft spot in the Maple Leaf schedule coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's from I want to say March 7th. After the next couple games, they basically play 3 games in like 9 days, and then they play 3 and 5, and then they play 2 games in the next like 8. So
Yeah.
basically, in short, if they acquired a player during that quarantine time, they'd only miss 4 games instead of missing
That's a
8,
product
9,
of
10.
being in the North Division, though. The other divisions
Yes.
don't have that benefit because of the odd number of teams. Each team has a little bit of that kind of schedule to benefit them. I know Montreal recently had theirs of that same kind of caliber. So,
Hmm.
but I guess that with
Well,
them being in that quarantine issue too, being North, it's an
other
interesting
benefit that's
spot.
kind of sneaky is that every player's cap is prorated per game. So the player's cap at Team X, who has only played 5 less games,
Mhm.
gets traded to a northern team who's played 5 more games. That prorated difference on
Mhm.
the cap gets calculated, right? So it
Okay.
almost slides up to the same games played. So it's very minimal. Like, we're talking what, like $10,000 maybe or something.
Yeah.
But you do that times X amount of days, you can get
Yeah.
up to a $500,000 in over the course of the season, right?
Yeah. When we're dealing at a professional high level here, every little edge you can push can make up a difference
Mhm.
of every little bit. They got to pay Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and all them somehow.
Yeah.
ten
Well,
thousand
that
dollars
actually
at a
kind
time.
of that kind of leads me a bit to my second thought that I
Yeah.
wanted to bring up is cap relief. Um, I've been kind of just thinking of possible different scenarios, not just out of nowhere, but I do follow a lot of kind of just the suggested topics, what's going on in the general managers meetings, what some of the owners are suggesting, what some of the players are suggesting. Obviously, these haven't been taken to the table yet. So, like, we don't know the actual input or the actual read or the actual feel in the room of the people involved on how they want to go. But what we do know is that the NHL asked for subsidiary assistance, monetary assistance through the government, and the government declined. They said basically figure it out yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the NHL has to do something. They're the biggest sport hurting for money, and we're not going to have a league that's stagnant. That's the cap doesn't move for like 7 years. That's not going to be a way where the NHL is
Can't grow
successful.
that way, yeah.
No. And it sounds like the players have basically said, the players and the players' PA have said no buyouts, because that means somebody who's established is losing a job. And if they lose a job because of poor performance, chances are that player isn't going to get another chance. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, the PA doesn't want to sign off on it because they know there's basically going to be sacrificial lambs. There's going to be players who have played their last game in the NHL already, just because of this. So they would rather something else where the owners take on the ownership and the owners still pay out the money, but they find some sort of
Mm-hmm.
alternative. So that's why, to me, and obviously look at the past, we've already had compliance buyouts in the past. So obviously those could be popped up again and easily used as precedent. But there's also been a lot of talk of the franchise tag. And the franchise tag, I think, is the better way to go, personally. First question, do you have any alternatives that you could think of? And B, if not, if those are the two, which way would you prefer and why?
I think I would prefer the franchise tag as opposed to buyouts. I don't know how franchise tag works, but is it basically that their salary doesn't count towards the cap kind of thing, or?
In base form, yes. I full disclosure, I don't know enough about other sports who carry a
Yeah, I don't.
franchise tag
I don't know it enough
to
either.
yeah, to either speak on it or compare it or even use it as a precedent or foundation for what the NHL does. But what I do speak about is what the NHL has suggested in their manager meetings. And that's
Um,
basically it,
I
is
guess
that the
buy
owners
like
could choose if they
buyouts
want
are
to
good
use it.
too. I think buyouts should be fine. Like I don't see it being an issue. I keep having a
But
pop up.
buyouts for normal money or compliance buyouts where it doesn't count towards the cap.
I don't know what you mean.
So there's already the buyouts now where you can buy out anybody. You just have to pay a prorated
Oh
whatever over a
no, like
certain
I
amount of
buy them
years to
out and
pay
then
off
it's
it.
not against the cap. It should just be the active players now. Like it drives me a little bit nuts that the Vancouver Canucks are being punished by Luongo's contract still. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of insane to me.
But that contract was signed out of the ill will with the intent to try to low cut what the NHL. So the NHL like had a feeder line, basically being like, follow these finite rules, and we want to see everybody follow these contracts.
Yeah.
Well, these other people said, okay, well, we're going to go this way instead, and then NHL said, well, we don't have rules against that, so we can't say no. But just so you're aware, this is what's going to happen. And they said, yep, sure, let's still sign pen to paper. So they
Yeah.
knew.
Consequences
So
new. Yeah. It's one of
I
those.
don't have any.
It's one of those things where you give a child a lighter and you say, "This is what can happen, but just don't do it." Like I don't know. Like at the same time, like you're not gonna hold it against them when forever and ever
What,
and ever. I
what's
just
the average lifespan of a general manager these days?
too long.
Too long. Sorry, general manager in the NHL.
I feel like they're for a long. That some of them are there for a long time. I would say 3 to 5 years. 5 years. They
Yeah,
should. Well,
yeah.
maybe I speak too soon. Like a good general manager should be able to last 10 years because really a general manager you don't really find out how good they are until 10 years down the road sometimes. But some of these guys they
A
get like
lot of the
two
time,
years,
yeah.
and some of them get like are there for 10 years, but they shouldn't be there for 10 years, and it's just I guess I speak
But
too
with all the
soon.
last recent changes in the last couple of years, what would you? I know it's a ballpark and the dark guess, but what would you predict would be the average service time per team
Probably 5 years.
for a GM in the NHL? So most, what would you say is the average contract signed by players?
Less, much less. 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
You think so?
There's just
See,
two on
I think
average because there's so many 2 year, 1 year contracts. It would just bring the overall average down. If you look at a
I
weighted
should say
the
discluding though the last two
okay,
years,
so
prior to two
no,
years
even
ago.
though I don't know, they're too long. Like they're probably three is probably the average, but like weighted average or like they sign way too long a contracts, longer
Yeah, see, my point is all
than their
those
10
seven,
year.
8, 9, 10, 11 year ones. those average out the 2-3 year deals.
I don't.
I guess my point, or what I'm getting at, is I feel like the average lifespan for GM is 4 to 5 years, and I feel like the average contract for stars or players that should be in the NHL are also 4 to 5 years. So I feel like GMs who are already 1 or 2 years into their term, who are signing a 4, 5, 6, 7 year contract, they don't care about the last year or two on the deal because they expect that they could be gone.
Fair
And if they
enough.
are still here, they'll figure that out in 4 or 5 years. And good managers will use time. They won't panic this year about something that could happen next year. So that's what I feel, is that, like, if the GMs are going to come in and say, whatever, I'll give an extra year because I won't be here anyways, I want to try and win now. There's got to be a way for owners to fix mistakes prior GMs may have committed to that were poor judgments.
Yeah, but then I feel like it could create, if that's the reason you're trying to fix prior GMs, like, it's the owner's fault. Like, and like it just gives you more
My main
reason.
point is that you have to find a way to clear money.
Yeah.
And it's on the owners somehow.
Yeah, a little bit of an eraser on these permanent decisions, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and one of the things that was questioned to me is, if you do that, doesn't that just give a weapon to the top financial teams? And my answer is absolutely it does. But when you ask the NHL, hey, you're not getting any help, so you got to fix yourselves, then you turn around and say, okay, where can we find money?
Yeah.
You can find money in the Toronto, the New York, the Montreal market. There's lots of money there that they could help, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, influence or help stimulate what's going on, even if it's for 3 or 4 years, just to try and what did I say the other day? Just to survive. Like, yes, it's not ideal. In a perfect situation, I don't think we'd ever be talking about this. But because of knowing that the cap's going to be an issue, what about these stars? What about these stars we're talking about right now or last year that need money in 2 or 3 years? What happens when all of them are told there's no money for you? That can't be an option, right?
Yeah.
Because then why are they playing now? Right? So that's the question that people have to ask themselves.
At
And there's
some
got to be a
point,
relief mechanism.
given the COVID issues and all the issues that the league's going to have financially, like, the players at the same time are going to have to give up a little bit here too. The owners are giving up some profits. The players are going to have to give up. But I think the problem is going to become that they're not going to stop signing these stars. The stars are still going to make the top bank. It's the middle class, the middle class players, the low players that are ending up going to suffer.
But I disagree with that, because you look at a guy like even Barzal. A year ago, we would have said Barzal gets what, 10,
7,
11,
8, 9, 10, yeah, could be something
million. What, 9 plus for sure, depending on term. What did he end up getting? Wasn't it like 6.5 or 7 or something? Maybe 8.
I honestly don't know.
Something that I want to say he got. I feel like somebody was talking, or people were talking about similar to Nylander's contract, and they were comparing him to Nylander. So, like, that's the problem, is that money is not there. We've already seen it's not there. So that means it's not there next year, or the year after, or the year after that. There is a TV deal coming, but, like, it's not going to be like the NBA or the NFL, where it basically just stimulates 40% of what they already have in the pool. So yeah, I don't know. I personally think it's going to be the franchise way, because then at that point it's the owner's choice. It's nothing mandated, but if you want to use it, here is how you use it. And I also think that there's a way to also allow weaponizing. And the one quick example I wanted to use with that before we move on is, imagine this. Imagine you're Seattle. You're just starting up your team. You don't really need the franchise tag because you don't really know who your franchise player is. And to be honest, in expansion, you're probably not going to get the guy who is your franchise guy, right? So what happens if a Seattle said to Buffalo, for example, hey, we'll take Skinner and we'll franchise him. So he's off our cap. We're paying us money. What are you going to pay us to do so? Or they turn around to a Florida and they say the same thing to a Bobrovsky. So they almost weaponize that contract. And yeah, the contract sucks, but you could just designate it on your franchise. And now that it's no longer against your cap, there's really no point talking about it because it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that'd be
so.
I like both. It'd be interesting. They got like we talk about, and we've talked about this quite a few times. Is it's something's got to happen. They can't keep going status quo. We're in a new world now. Like new, got to figure it out. It'll be interesting. I'm sure they have these discussions constantly of what they're gonna do and what not.
Yeah.
One
And
thing.
I could imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add a great transition ready to go here.
Okay.
What are you gonna say?
I don't really remember anymore, so it's all good. I could talk about that topic all
I know
day.
you couldn't, but one
About
thing
the
that is for
franchise.
sure is that the cap like has to do with the revenues of the teams, right?
Yeah.
So now that fans are starting to trickle back into the stadiums,
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
we'll see. Like we're gonna start seeing the revenues at least increasing. Like we're no longer gonna have empty stadiums
In the
literally
States.
everywhere in the states. Yeah, it's only a
The
matter.
States.
I don't think we'll
Yeah.
see it in Canada this season.
I don't think
Next
so.
to impossible, right? But
Unless there's a bubble for the playoffs.
mhm.
If there's a bubble and there was a controlled way to do the testing within that bubble, maybe.
Yeah,
I think that's the
it's
only
still a
way
long
Canada will
shot
do it.
because here in Canada, they don't have any large gatherings anywhere really. Still,
Nowhere. Yep.
and it's
Yep.
still like pretty lockdowny compared to
Yep.
all of the states. But I don't know, like the most places where it started to lock down the most in the states in the beginning are starting to even have fans coming back. With Buffalo
Mhm.
being in New York State as one of those areas that has fans. I think the last place to probably get fans is going to be California. I would assume.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
Probably.
going to be interesting. You noticed it. Vegas had their game this week with the first time in the fans, and you notice it. You know the players, even the players, make comments of how much better it is to play in front of these fans, and how much gives them that extra. Vegas had an amazing comeback. The fans were, even though it was very limited
Yeah.
capacity, you could hear them on the television. You could definitely
Yeah.
making an
And I
impact.
don't remember if they said 10,000 or 10%. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it was 10,000, what percentage that is of the total capacity. But let's
Mhm.
assume it's approximately 10% capacity. I could hear it for sure. And like, you could tell in the emotion, it brought more emotion to that game.
Yep.
And like, that's
It might
the
have
one
sparked
thing
that
from
comeback.
watching the Northern division. It's fucking boring compared to what I expected it to be. It got a little exciting for a little bit there, but I would say in the last 2.5 weeks, it's dipped into this little lull where it's just kind of like, oh, the Leafs are good. Other teams kind of have a hot couple games here and there.
Mhm.
It's boring. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because the Leafs are good and there's not as many people
Yeah.
complaining necessarily, but like it's just weird.
It's pretty.
It
They got it.
seems
Yeah,
way
the division seems
boring or
pretty solved at least on the top of that division. So maybe that.
yeah.
What?
Just I could hear the dog there.
Yeah, he he's going crazy right now, but he's going in his
Rumbling
chair, so
around.
maybe he'll settle down a little bit. It's the one downside of we doing that this time. I have to babysit Mr. Milo, and he is a loud person and guest, but he's our number one fan, so we do have that.
He's our mascot. So I wanted to jump a topic first before we came back to this other one, but I just wanted to ask you. You were actually the one that brought it up to me because I know you're a Vegas fan, so you were kind of watching the game, and you
Yep.
pointed out to me just to say that I know. Yeah, I forget how you verbed it, but basically said that I know how much you love review plays. So come check out this one in this game because I don't know how they called it because the puck was like 20 feet in the air, whatever it
This
was.
actually a Boston Washington game.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was Vegas
No,
versus whoever
it's the
Anaheim.
only game on at the time, so obviously I was tuned
Oh,
into
okay.
that. But this is the one where was it Washington? I'm trying to remember
Yeah,
who even
Washington
scored.
and
Washington
Boston.
score.
It was
Washington
Washington,
score.
Boston.
Yeah, so it was a huge dump in one of those. We've talked about this I think even like last week or the week before, where the puck was just like skyrocketed into the sky over the blue line and the guy's skating and they didn't call it offside at the time and then it got challenged. The goal score like it drops down. There's a scrum and then the puck gets passed out and they score and they get challenged for offside. And it's crazy because in the replay you can't even really see the puck in the sky. It's so high and it's like got the black stands backdrop in it, so you can't really see it. I don't see how they could find evidence to support that what's the wording they use? Indisputable evidence to overchange the call, right? I don't know how they figured it out, but they turned out that it was offside. I don't know how. But it's just one of those. I had to send it to you because the NHL, every week we seem to be finding this one play that, I don't know, they're not consistent. Like, I want to see what they're looking at.
One thing, and it's only being overturned during challenges, and it's only risking coaches taking the risk of getting a penalty themselves.
And that's the other thing.
Where it is in the game.
I thought, like, if I'm the coach, I'm like not doing that challenge because it seems so risky for like almost no payoff, but like it works. So he obviously knows more than me.
See, if I was a coach, I would have challenged it just to be like, I don't care if you call that a goal or not, but I want you to review that so that if and when this happens again, I can refer back and say, okay, that's great, but last time this is what happened. You know what I mean? Like, I would be the opposite, where it's like, I want to challenge because, like, yes, I might get the penalty, but hey, if I challenge and I get the penalty, they score and we lose, and the talk next day is about how it should have been a penalty, I have an argument now, and then I can be like, how are you going to fix it, right?
The NHL challenge system to me is a little flawed. It's so devastating to be wrong. Definitely on a goal specifically, to be wrong. I guess I understand the purpose is they don't want everything being challenged. Yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm. But like if it's like a questionable thing such as that, or like the ones we've been talking about in the prior weeks, and A, the goal stands, and B, you get a penalty, like it can be devastating. That's quickly 2 goals against you sometimes, and can't come back from that. Just
and if we're talking playoffs, Game 7, something.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'd like to see it be revisited. I don't know what other option they can have on penalty, but like a 2-minute penalty, it's definitely it's painful.
Yeah, and I mean, just random side topic. I wish that the NHL would go back to a full power play. Not where if you score, power play ends. I feel like the NHL should just, if it's a 2-minute, you get 2-minute power play regardless of how many goals you score. Yep. Oh, that's how it used to be way back in the day.
That'd be
like
nuts.
Back in the 80s, I want to say it stopped like that. But yeah.
Are you only saying that because the Leafs power play is like lights out right now, or?
The reason I say that is because it negates more teams trying to build like the Islanders, and it makes you want to build a better team, because if you have a better power play, you should have a benefit. I don't think power play should be the game decide, like what decides the game. But if you draw a lot of penalties and you get so the other thing that we have to remember, if you want to sidetrack on Leafs for half a second, they were one of the least power play given teams over the last 2 years.
For sure.
Now they're one of the top, and they're one of the top power play teams. So to go from that swing to the other, there's got to be some change, right? Because you've come from one side to the other. So if you've done that swing and then nothing changes, what's the point of doing the swing? Is my point. Mm-hmm. So if you make it the full power plays, people will not be doing these cross checks on these stars. They'll not be hacking and whacking because they can't afford to be in the box, especially if they are one of the more physical or penalty killing type players. Yeah. They can't afford to be in the box for the full 2 minutes, right? They're losing ice time. They're losing all these other things. People will be more mindful of their sticks. People will be more mindful of stupidity. I just think it's a
higher scoring game too.
Positive. That too, right? And then you don't have to worry about goalies trying to cheat the system. Let them do their thing. Yeah. Let everybody just compete like batters and pitchers do, minus the scandals that we see in that sport. But still.
No, I can see that. Yeah. That would be an interesting thing to look at. Okay. Do you want to talk at this prospects thing that you? Let's get into that.
This is something I've just this is my own little kind of speculation bubble, if you will, or speculation theory.
Okay.
But it does have precedent. And if anyone ever wants to look into it, you can actually look back to when the Leafs were trying to sign John Tavares directly out of the OHL. And the reason why that was a thing then was because he missed his draft year, but I want to say it was like 3 weeks or something like that. It was pretty minimal.
Okay.
So first they asked the NHL, hey, like clearly he got exceptional player status. He's a really good player in junior. Can you make an accommodation this one time to let him go in this draft? The NHL said no. So then they said, okay, well, is there any way that us as the Leafs can sign him to a 1-year deal, and then he becomes the property of the Leafs, and he can play in the AHL and then play in the NHL? So that was where this whole idea kind of came from.
Okay.
And then now what I'm thinking is applying it to today's prospects. So to be draft eligible, you have to be 18 years old.
Yeah.
So let's say you're an 18-year-old right now, and you're supposed to be playing, but you're not. And it sounds like, well, it's 2/3 of the way through the season. Like the OHL might not return at this point. And
Yeah.
if they do, it's going to be in some limited capacity. Might be a bubble playoff format. Who knows at this point, right?
It hasn't started at all, right?
I think some WHL is playing.
Okay.
And I think some QMJHLs tried to start playing, but the OHL has not, I don't believe, played any games.
Yeah.
Or started talking about startup or anything.
Yeah.
So if you're an 18-year-old and they're talking about changing the draft from this year to next year to allow prospects to go and start playing and play a full year next year so teams can see these guys. If you're this 18-year-old, you have to wait till next July to be even drafted. Most times once you're drafted, you then go back to a year of junior if you're eligible, or you play a year in the AHL or something, right? If you're playing in junior, you get your entry-level contract if they give it to you then and there, but it slides. So what I'm trying to say in short is that even the best of best prospects at 18, in 2 years, will be getting their entry-level contract.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is if you are an 18-year-old right now, and you're looking at your life only from here until next July, so the next year and a half, you want to become an NHL hockey player. You have 2 options. You wait, you see what happens in the OHL, you don't get hurt. If your team plays, if you get enough on the map where you happen to be rostered, then you go back for another year, and then you get your entry level. You then get access to the facilities, the trainers, the on-ice practices, all that other stuff. That's option 1.
Yeah, sounds not good.
Option not great, right? And very unknown, and no guaranteed money, a lot of variables, potential injuries, potential sickness, whatever.
It kind of feels like missing a year of school in a way.
Right?
Yeah.
So how many prospects of those will it, in essence, ruin, right?
Good, yeah.
Or potentially ruin, or ruin the odds even more. However you want to look at it, it still is a negative impact. So then let's go to option B. You're a good enough prospect, or you know the right people, or you're on the map of a team, or your home team comes calling, or whatever the case may be, and they say, hey, bud, if you forgo your draft eligibility, if you opt out of the draft, you can sign directly with an NHL team.
Okay, and that is allowed right now.
There's some stipulations behind it.
Okay.
But let's just think about it in idea, grand idea first before we get into that. So let's say you sign a contract now. You have access to facilities, trainers, everything now. You're getting money in your bank account now. And you're dedicated to this one team who can put their resources in and teach you, get you on the ice, loan you somewhere. What option is better?
Yeah. Well, the one where you basically get the best of the best training facilities, products, all the things to invest in your own personal development. Yeah. 100%.
So that's my point, is like, if you're an 18-year-old prospect and these are your 2 roads you're looking down, the stipulations, I don't know everything. That's why this is my idea that I'm trying to put together. I was referencing the CBA and everything. I got my hands on a copy of that just to see if there's finite details and whatnot. Some of the details are a little bit complicated because if they're Europeans, they can play in the AHL as long as they're over 18.
Okay.
So let's say it's a European who came into the European expansion draft through the OHL. So you came from Europe, but then to North American Junior, you can actually play in the AHL at 18.
Okay.
If you're a North American Junior, you cannot play until you've finished your 20th age season. So in other words, you can't play for 2 years in the AHL or the ECHL. So this is the part that I can't confirm, is that I know you can sign a guy, and I know that you can loan them out.
Yeah.
I know that if you were to go down this avenue, you would have to at least give them a 1-year deal. They could not play for your NHL team. It might have to be a 2-year deal depending on their age. So basically, you'd be paying this prospect to not play for you, which if they're in OHL, you'd be doing that anyways.
Yeah.
But they're in your facilities, under your watch, under your care. Like,
yeah.
Is this a loophole that allows some of these teams to say, hey, you're from Toronto, you're a Leafs boy. If the CHL was normal, you would have been 7th overall pick. Instead of waiting for next year to go 7th and then maybe wait another year to get in the NHL, we'll sign you, loan you out to, I don't know what qualifies, but as long as it's not AHL and ECHL, for 2 years, you get paid, we'll teach you, we'll grow you, and then bam,
I'm
we'll
going
put you
to
right in the NHL.
assume that the NHL is going to try everything they can to avoid this, because part of what they don't want their top prospects to choose where they go, right? Long story short, they want to make the worst teams better so that it's a parity league. So, I don't know. There's a lot that they have to figure out still with the upcoming draft, and I'm going to assume that this is the last thing they would want to happen, is people to kind of choose where they're going to go. And
so in regards to that,
yeah,
they asked back in the day when this whole Tavares thing was happening, they said, the commissioner and everyone of the NHL said, the reason why they cannot do this is because there's a rule in place to help protect the CHL so that they don't lose their talent and that their quality doesn't suffer.
That makes sense, yeah.
And the commissioner of the league at the time, or not the commissioner, sorry, the what is he? Bill Daly.
Yep.
Whatever he is.
Players Association guy, right?
Yeah. So they asked him directly. They said, "Hey, if this rule was forgone, or if there was an accommodation, or if it wasn't in play, would you guys step in to stop this from happening?" And on record, multiple places, he said, "No, we would never step in." Now, this again is dated. This is from 2007.
Yeah.
So this is dated for sure. But if you're going by that precedent, when back then he said, we would not stop the Maple Leafs from trying to basically cheat their way to John Tavares.
Yeah.
Why would it change now?
Sure.
Is my only relative comparison, really. That's what I'm thinking. So like,
yeah, because they're in the best. They're in the best. They're trying to do what's in the best interest of players, right? Not of the league. Yes. So it's conflict.
Yes.
Obviously, they want their players to start making money. They want their players to be playing and getting the best schooling or whatever.
The only thing, though, is that each organization can have 50 contracts max. And that's to play on your NHL team, to play on your AHL team, and then throughout juniors and whatever, every other contract that you have given out and signed.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
There's still a max. So like there's 23 guys on an NHL roster. Mm-hmm. Right now on the taxi squad, I think there's 5, so that's 28. Plus I think there's 10 or 12 or whatever on the Marlies or on the AHL. So that's usually 42 to 45 contracts are already tied up. And that's why a lot of drafted prospects don't get signed right away unless they're almost ready to be put in, because you still own them, but you don't want to use up that one of the 50. So to combat what you just said about you don't want all these players to be taken, there's still going to be a limit, even if it's 3 or 4 per team, and not all teams will want or be able to do it. If you do take the 8 or 10 teams that might do that times 2 or 3 bodies, you're really only talking 20 or 30 bodies. But if those are the 20 or 30 best prospects, just imagine they do that, and then there's the draft next year. Imagine the quality of the draft at that point.
Yeah.
From that perspective, the NHL might want to stand in and step in and do something.
We have talked about that, they might do 2 drafts and stuff. They haven't decided, right, what they're gonna do.
Up in the air.
Yeah.
Again, another point too, as a prospect, if you don't know, if all this shit's up in the air and everything,
it's better to know your fate than to have it up in the air for sure.
Right? So this is where I'm expecting some loopholes to be viewed, and why I think the Leafs, or why I keep referencing the Leafs, is that Brendan Pridham, the assistant GM, actually designed and created the CBA. He was one of the few bodies who was part of it. So if
Okay.
anybody knows of a loophole or a way to get around that, it's going to be him. And if there's anybody who knows that if that's legal or not, it's going to be him. And I don't think I'm the smartest bulb in the tree, but if I'm thinking about this, I got to assume they already have thought about it.
Of course, yeah.
They've already discussed it, right? So
Yeah.
if that's the case, where this is all coming from is if you are the Leafs, and if you are doing this, why not go out and pay prospect capital that you have now? You like them, they're great, they fit in your system. You don't want to go out of your way to move them. But hey, if you could trade 2 or 3 top end prospects, not your top couple, but that next tier down, and then turn around this summer and I'll call them poach those prospects that we were just talking about, you've basically spent, but then reloaded, backfilled from the back end. Is that a way you can go? And if so, that's something to watch. And that could be a sneaky way for people to take advantage of the system.
Yeah, and like you said, with the people they have in the front office, those are they're the ones that are thinking ahead. They're the ones setting the new meta and all that stuff with Toronto. That's why I've been so fascinated with Toronto since they've gotten Dubas, is because they have a different mentality over there now. So,
and for the record, what I think is going to happen is I do think there's going to be a franchise tag. I do think the Leafs are going to franchise Matthews, which means it's 13 or what is it, 11.345 or 34 million. So 11.5 million or whatever gets franchised, which means you now have an 11.5 to spend on your cap, which means you can retain all your bodies. And then I think that they're also going to go about doing that prospect thing I just talked about. I think they're going to get a solid player, but they're going to pay extra, so that team pays half their contract. Mm-hmm. So we get them for cheaper, but we pay up that extra amount. Then we backfill with those prospects. And this time next year, we're saying, wow, we have $3 million of cap space. We re-sign Freddie. We re-sign Hyman. Looking good. Mm-hmm. We have these couple prospects that we poached. Future looks good for the next 4 or 5 years compared to all this like doomsday negative talk that's going on right now. Oh, well, what about when Hyman leaves? He's too expensive now. Or what about our goalies? We're never going to figure it out. It's like, guys, we have time, chill, enjoy the ride. And if all this happens the way it sounds like it could happen, yes, it's a lot of variables. But if that road happens, there's a lot of teams, the Rangers, Montreal, like same situation. Franchise tag, Montreal, franchise's price. Price comes off the book. Nobody talks about his cap anymore. And that team can go and add a top player. Boom, there's your uncle.
There's my uncle. All right.
I know that's not the expression.
It'll be interesting what's going on. Lots of question marks in the air, as pretty normal with this season. Don't know a lot. We're pretty much still flying by the seat of our pants on a weekly basis. But on the plus side, we haven't had to have one of those crazy, oh my God, there's so many postponements this week, or oh my God, the season's coming to an end, or oh my God, we don't even know when the season's going to start again. Like, at least we're not having those conversations, and I know I, for one, am grateful for that. So now that all the question marks.
The season may have ended for one particular player.
Who?
McKinnon.
No, get out of here. It's not over. He's gonna be playing tomorrow. I'm not worried.
I know. I'm just kidding.
We're not gonna talk about it. But did you, honestly though? But just to touch on that, did you see the hit?
Did not. No.
No.
I can't speak on it.
Okay. Well, it's whatever. It wasn't, to me. It wasn't.
I'll have to watch it later, and then I'll give you my comment on it later.
Okay. Sounds good. Is it that time of the week now?
I think it's time to do that, or did you want to do the 5-team breakdown first?
Oh yeah, let's do that. So you had approached me that you wanted to look at the league, and you wanted me to give you my take on the top 5 teams of the league, which means that you also have already looked at this and you already have been digging through it. So I don't know. For me, I went through the 5. Immediately, I knew 3. Fourth one was okay. It makes sense to get my fourth one, and like you said, we probably have the same top 4 in the league.
At least top 3.
At least top 3, yeah. Then when it got to the 5th for me, it was kind of a crapshoot because like for each one of the teams, I had issues on what it would be. A lot of it had to do with division, like. The division, it's hard to say because everyone's playing the same team, so you can really only see what they're like against their same opponents. And then once you start crossing, then the clear-cut 5th might be more apparent. But So for me,
But the problem is that we don't know who is oil and who is water yet.
exactly.
We have to assume that these big defensive, shutdown teams are oil. They've been oil for the longest time. But this year, they might be water.
Yeah.
And if we happen to be, if the Leafs or if the Avalanche or if one of these higher scoring offensive kind of type teams is the oil this year, that's going to change the game.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by the oil and the water, to be honest.
Oil and water don't mix,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay.
So I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
usually one thing always works, but if it switches, it's not going to work the same, I guess is my point.
All right, sounds good. Do you just want me to rip through here and list them off? So I'll start.
They're in order of your top, right?
Yeah, I'll start with number one, which I'm assuming we're the same, just because. But my number one is Tampa Bay, and their goaltender is beyond belief, the best in the league right now. Vezina, we've talked about it plenty of times. The rest of their team, like, they're Stanley Cup winners, right? So they haven't shown any.
They're adding Kucherov.
Yeah, they haven't shown anything to show otherwise why they're still not number one in my point of view. Number two, we might be different here, and this is where biases will probably come into play. I have Vegas as number two.
Yeah.
Oh, you too? Okay. So for me, I have them number two. I think their level of opponents are harder. I don't really see a weakness on their players. They have four solid lines. All of them can score. All of them are very good NHL rosterable players. They have solid defense. Four defensemen on their team would be on the number one pairing on most other teams in the league. So I really give it to them. And Fleury right now is just playing like old Fleury, Pittsburgh Fleury, so it's pretty crazy to watch, actually.
And even if he falls off a little bit, Leonard's going to come back and play good eventually, so they're going to have two capable goalies. And Leafs look like they have capable goalies too, but in terms of, I agree, Vegas is the second best team by a slim margin.
Mm-hmm.
I do have Leafs 3, which I think is where you're going.
Yep.
The difference for me is that I think that a lot of the skill is comparable on the two teams. I think the Leafs have the edge on the very top end.
Yep.
But when it comes to the depth, I think Vegas has better youth who have better skill, where Toronto has more veteran savviness. And I don't know what would come out better in the wash in a playoff series, but I think they're comparable skill. It's just
I would love to see these two teams play in the playoffs, which right now they're on.
I hope this is the matchup.
Me too. But
I think it could be the best series of the playoffs.
Yeah. One thing I want to just point. What was I gonna say? I kind of forget. Oh, Vegas. I just think Vegas too I give them a little bit of that edge because they've had now back-to-back seasons of severe disappointment in the playoffs. I know the Leafs kind of had that too, but I don't know if the Stanley Cup was the expectation of the Leafs last year. I don't think so. The way they went into the playoffs, whereas that was the expectation of Vegas, and they didn't even make it to that round. So I know a lot of their players.
Too. They got
against San Jose a couple years ago. Yeah. So there's a lot of pain on their players, specifically like Stone, Pacioretty, and those players that have been there since the beginning. They have the pain, and I think the hunger for the cup is a little bit stronger than it would be in Toronto.
And Patches also had pain in Montreal before he showed up, and Stone had pain in Ottawa before he showed up. So there's also the lingering pain and scars, and then there's the deeper scars as well. So I completely agree with you.
One thing I gotta just throw this in there that blew my mind recently about Mark Stone is that his age. I didn't realize how young this man was. I thought he was like a grizzled veteran, and then it turns out he's younger than me, and I'm just like in shock. Yeah.
And he was a second-round pick as well.
Mm-hmm. And
he was. There was multiple scouts at the time that said he will never play in the NHL because of his lack of foot speed or lack of foot coordination. There's multiple scouts who are still employed now who said that. That's why he was a second rounder, because they thought he'd never keep up.
Yeah.
But here he is.
Here he is, captain of the Vegas. All right. For number 4, I don't know if we have the same. Maybe. I have Washington Capitals.
Too, actually.
Yeah. So this one is it's a drop down from the top 3. The goalies kind of are a big question mark for me. They're both two young guys. they've been riding Vanacek most of the season so far. They've had Samsonov back for one game now. I don't know. That's a little bit of a question mark for me. He's definitely fired up. I was watching him yesterday. He is a fired up individual. So he's definitely got the passion. They're strong too. Like they're deep. They're just overall strong team as well, and they're top in this what I think is the hardest division to be top in.
Yeah, and you got to think that they missed Ovi for a while too.
Mhm.
They've been missing Samsonov, so they've been running one goalie. They've had a couple injuries and whatnot. Wilson's missed a couple games, didn't he? There.
Yep.
So like they haven't been running on full guns, and they're still what I think seventh in the NHL right now,
Mhm.
in winning percentage.
First in their
So
division.
yeah,
Which I
first in
didn't
the
even do
division
it on.
yet.
I didn't do it on purpose. I actually somehow picked first place in every division as my top four, not on purpose.
That's funny. Yeah, I was just looking at winning percentage and looking at their goals for and differential and stuff like that, and games played and whatnot. But in terms of Washington, what was I going to say with Washington? Um, I don't remember what I was going to say with Washington, but I had them fourth just because the youth goaltending and whatnot. Oh, what I was going to say, sorry about them, is a couple of years ago when Washington won the cup, it was this weird feeling that I got around the team where like it's not about Ovi, it's about the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
And Ovi took a little bit of a step back where he didn't score 60 that year. I think he scored like 48 or something. And he went on to be like really good in the playoffs. I'm getting that vibe where Washington will be a better playoff team this year than they are regular season. And they're a pretty scary looking regular season team. So
Mhm.
I feel like they're going to be a team you do not want to fuck with come playoff time.
Yeah, and
It'll be a
they
scary
kind of
team.
have the same thing last year. They were mediocre because in the whole bubble situation, they didn't get out of that first round, right? I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
I don't remember.
I don't think they did. I don't remember off the top
Did
of
they
my
lose
head.
to the Islanders in that first? I don't remember that first round, but
I don't remember. I don't
yeah,
remember.
but I don't know. I think they have, like you said, they have this different feel around them. They're kind of like going. They're a little bit under the radar as a team in the league too. Like, and that I think plays in their favor as well.
If you look at a playoff matchup up 4 to 7 games playing Tom Wilson, Ov, and Chara, that's not a fun time. That's going to be a nightmare team to play 7 times. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see another team that suits up in that division well to they might beat Washington the first game or two, but like over the longer the series gets, I don't like almost any team, maybe
Yeah.
other than Vegas, the longer the series
That's a
goes.
good point too. Yeah, that's good. And when it comes to seven, and it shapes up to be Tampa versus them. That could be pretty solid.
That could be dangerous.
All right.
Yeah, that for number 5, who did you have?
So for number five, this one was the toughest because I just wasn't sure. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of holes in each team. I did pencil in Florida as my number five. Um, I just like the way they've been playing hockey this year. They're not playing the craziness that they have in the past. I think Joe Quenneville must have done something right there. Maybe there's an advantage to them being used to playing in front of no fans seasons before. Just keep, but yeah, I don't know. I their goalies is kind of a little bit of my question mark. I do like their depth a little bit. It's a little bit underrated, and it's not names that you hear about all the time, but they do have some solid, at least forward depth with that they can get scoring from really all their lines, and their power play super strong.
They
Um,
shoot a lot. They're the top shooting team in the NHL by a large margin.
yeah,
Average like 37 shots a game, but the league average is like 31.
I'm gonna be interested. They did all right against Tampa when they played recently. I'm gonna be interested. They're playing Carolina, I think. I think playing Carolina. No, they're
I
not
think
playing
so.
Carolina. No, they're not. They
No,
just finished with them. They're playing. Who are they playing tonight?
Nashville.
Nashville. So I'm interested to see. They're gonna start playing the middling bottom like Columbus, Nashville. If they can take care of business in this, I'm definitely on board. They've had a pretty good run. They've definitely have solid. I don't know. That's
Who was the
other.
debate team or
So the
teams
other
that you
teams
had
I
with
was
Florida?
considering, I had St. Louis in there, Colorado in there. Again, Colorado's they've had some injury problems throughout the season so far. I'm not confident that they can rely on their goalie to stand on his head should he need to, but the way they've been playing this year, and he never really has to. The style, they kind of don't give up a lot of shots on a given night, averaging 25 shots a night against them. St. Louis, just kind of, I think they are going to be a threat, definitely with Tarasenko if he comes back, seeing how he fits into this lineup. They're another team that has some solid depth, and they've been there, done that before. My question with St. Louis, again, they don't really have a backup goalie that they can rely on, and if Bennington has issues, which he has not been amazing this season, but he's not been their detriment either. So that's really the other teams I considered. I don't consider anyone really in the North to be a potential for 5. I think it falls off very, very quickly after the Leafs. Carolina is they're like right up there with Florida, but I don't have them as someone I considered it really as a 5th. And after that, I don't really have anyone else. I considered those 3.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about St. Louis. I overlooked St. Louis. I like your case for St. Louis a lot. I guess who I had as 5.
My guess, honestly, is that we were the same. If I had to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I doubled down. Yeah, because that's what I've been saying for a while.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Might as well double down with Florida. So, but at the time, I did debate Florida, Colorado. I looked at Carolina briefly, but they need a goalie. I don't trust Reimer, Mrazek, or Nedeljkovic can get them to where they want to go. I think they need a guy like a Kemper or like somebody. I don't know. He just came to my brain off the top,
they found gold this year in Trocheck. Like, he's been amazing for them, and my concern with Carolina is their 3rd and 4th line. It just can't compete, in my point of view, with these other teams.
They are lacking a little bit of depth specifically on that 4th line. I do think that's their weakness.
And we saw it when they lost to Boston last year in a 7-game series. They couldn't handle those kind of games.
3rd and 4th, yeah. And then the other team that I kind of briefly thought about, I mean, again, off the top, it was Florida and Colorado. But there's something off to me about Colorado this year. I don't know why the scoring isn't happening. I was a bit worried about that. I feel like they might have one too many guys that wants the puck too often. Either that or they might be better off to try and split up into a 3-line team a little bit if they're not going to stack that top line. But their goaltending, same thing what you said about the backup goalie for St. Louis, that kind of concerns me, not knowing what Francouz is going to be like. But I thought about Philly too briefly, under one condition, that they bring in a top 4 defenseman. And from what I've been hearing for like a year and a half is that Matthias Ekholm, if he ever left Nashville, he'd be ending up in Philly. I don't know why, but that's what everyone seems to be connecting.
Yeah,
so if they were to make a move like that and Hart gets his head out of his ass.
Yeah, that's my concern
I think
right
Philly,
now. It really feels like Hart is in a sophomore slump, and there's a lot of issues right there on their defense.
Yeah.
I don't even if I'm doing a top 10 right now, I don't even have Philly in the top 10.
Yeah, they could. Their ceiling is up there, but they're not playing toward.
No, they're definitely
their ceiling,
not.
So
and with a short season, you don't have a lot of time for these kind of crappy runs like they're on right now.
Yeah, you can't let things play out. You got to get fucking results. But yeah, I think if I had to pick a team right now or pick 1 or 2 teams now, for sure it's Florida or St. Louis. But I kind of forgot about Tarasenko coming back and all that other stuff. If St. Louis picks up another goalie that can help them, I think I'd take St. Louis over Florida. But right now, as is how things are, I think that I'd have to put Florida in there.
Yeah, sounds good. We're on the same page.
Awesome.
I'm excited when we do the mid-season standing review is going to be interesting because that's one thing. There's a couple surprises in there right now for me. I can tell you that for sure. Definitely when it comes to the North Division. My number 2 is moving on up.
Well, when we were looking at the top 5 and I was looking at standings and stuff, obviously you'd see the top, whatever it is, 8 or 9 teams before you start scrolling down. And I saw Chicago up there and I was like, the fuck? Chicago's like in the top part of the pages. Oh, okay. Without Taves. Okay.
We'll talk about them
That
when
team isn't,
in the
that
next
amazing, but
in this
still.
next segment. I have a little
Yeah. Yeah.
setup for coming up into that. So let's move on to that. You ready?
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right, it's time for that 3 stars of the week, brought to you by
Ooh,
us.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just brought to you by us because we're still looking for that first sponsor. If you own a company out there, let us know. Do you want to? I think you picked first again this week, right? So I'll let you kick things off here.
Okay. I just looked at yours now, so we'll start. So for third star for me,
Yeah.
I kind of cheated a little bit and I went with Leafs goalies.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that they've handled the Oilers. The Oilers had won 4 straight. Obviously, we don't have to talk about how good McDavid and Draisaitl are. To give up 1 goal over 3 games, over 100 shots, 3 different goalies. Say as you will between the quality, say as you will of what they've been in the past. But the goalies looked pretty damn sharp, and I think the Leafs are third in the league in save percentage right now from their goalies,
Yeah, you got it.
which has not been something that we've been able to talk about that I can ever recall.
That's what I was gonna say. You definitely have to give them props because I think for countless years now we've always been talking about how the Leafs can't play defense, can't save a puck. So it's a good one. I like it.
It's new. Yeah. So I thought it was worth cheating a little bit. My second star, as I wrote here, is Gabriel Landeskog, but it's actually Landeskog. I picked him because actually he's on my one fantasy team, and I didn't even notice he was this hot because he just kind of came back from some injuries or COVID or whatever it was there. But in the last 3 games he's played, he has 3 goals, 3 assists, 3 power play points, and a game-winning goal. He's ranked, I think, 28th in the last 7 days in both of the fantasy leagues I'm in. So he's just been lights out. And Colorado scored a lot of goals, and I figure that he kind of stood out when McKinnon or Rantanen usually are the guys who kind of get the props. I felt he was deserving of getting a little bit of props. And for the first star, I got to go to my boy.
This is our first person to hit the 3 stars of the week 3 times already this season.
Yeah, not quite 3 in a row, but
close. 3 of the last 4.
Did you give him one? Oh yeah. 3, so he's got a first star, a second star, and a third star. So go him. I have obviously Vasilevsky, 3 consecutive shutouts. He's still on a shutout streak. That I say that he's probably already given up a goal in the game tonight.
Not yet.
I haven't looked at the score. Not yet?
Not yet. It's only 13 seconds in though, so.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll say this: he'll never give up a goal ever again, and then in the next 3 minutes, he'll probably give up a goal. But yeah, 4 wins in a row. To be honest, I think a lot of the credit has to go to Hedman. I watched a game of theirs, a couple of games of theirs recently, and like he is just a beast. And like without Kucherov, Tampa's going by more of a depth approach. I find they're kind of trying to beat you with skill by depth. And they're not really that team that's loading up the top line and trying to just like punch you in the face time after time after time.
No, they're getting scoring from everywhere.
They are, but they're not loading up, I guess is more my point. And like they're just a team now. They're not one of those teams where it's the big line and then some other guys and then the scrubs. They're a good team, and once they get Kucherov back in the playoffs, they're going to be dangerous. But I guess my point of saying all that is I think that the onus or the respect or whatever you want to say that Tampa deserves right now, I think a lot of it is on Hedman and Vasilevsky.
Yep.
I'd say that's a lot of their reason for success. Not all, obviously. There's a lot of other guys contributing, but if they didn't have those 2 guys playing as they are, they may have had a couple more losses along the way, or at least not, 6 shutouts they have now, I think?
Something crazy, yeah. And he's played every game, I think, except 2 now this season.
2 or 3, yeah. 2. There's a back-to-back. I can't remember if the back-to-back. Yeah, there's a back-to-back this week.
He'll be playing his 3rd time getting a break.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Chicago.
Yeah.
They might go back-to-back because it's Chicago.
Yeah, and they're in tight race, right?
They might.
They could, yeah.
So they might.
It depends.
I doubt you do that, but maybe.
Definitely if they win tonight, they probably wouldn't.
Might as well, right? There's no point fucking around with that.
Yeah.
If Vasilevsky goes down, you're fucked. Well, not fucked, but like, don't fuck with that. If he's playing, I would ask him, like, if he plays in the first game against Chicago and he gets like 21 saves, and you say like, do do you feel good? And he says, yeah, I want to go. Go. But if he gets like 38 saves for Chicago, I'd be like, I don't care how you feel, you're sitting today.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. All right, I'm going to kick things off here just with a quick honorable mention. I was super close to giving it to a defenseman this week. Couldn't do it. And you know me, I like to kind of pick the teams that are like doing well in the standings too, like they're on a little bit of a heater. So I couldn't. That's kind of what discounted him out. I almost gave it to Chris Letang, so just a honorable mention to him. Almost a defenseman, almost making it. So for me, third star of the week, I gave to Kyle Connor. Winnipeg's won 5 of their last 6 coming into tonight, and believe it or not, they're up 2-0 right now. I don't know if you want me throwing spoilers around. I might stop.
It's not the Leafs.
I won't get there. Story. Yeah. He got 3 goals, 3 assists over the past 4 games. Just continues to be a weapon for this team, and he's not on their top line of the trio. So I thought I'd give it to him, and I'm pretty satisfied with what that team's been doing and making moves.
They've been solid.
My second star of the week here goes to Mikko Rantanen. Him and Landeskog, who was your second star as well, just have teamed up a lot on a lot of their goals. So they're really hitting off each other. When McKinnon went out last night of the game, they got the 5-minute power play off the hit. They put in 2 points each together on that. So Rantanen, he's got 3 goals, 5 assists, 3 power play points, all within the last 4 games. So that's pretty big. So that's got to give a little props to that Colorado team. Even though they got blown out the one game against San Jose earlier this week, they've been on a little bit of a tear too. So as a team, this number first star, a little bit of a stretch, but I wanted to give some credit, and you touched on it a little bit earlier in the podcast about Chicago. They've just been doing good. And I gave Alex DeBrincat first star of the week. He's on a 6-game point streak right now. Coming into tonight, overall 8 points. Chicago has won 8 of their last 11, which is pretty impressive, considering I think both of us had them pretty much near the bottom of the standings this week. He picked up a little bit of extra points against Detroit over the weekend, but that's where I'm giving it. I gave him my first star of the week. Congratulations, Alex DeBrincat.
I feel like there should be one other honorable mention that we should throw out there.
Okay.
And that's for Drake Batherson of the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
I don't remember the stat. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was something to do with the most consecutive games with a goal for the first-year player.
Oh, okay.
And I want to say that he was like 6th on the list of all-time.
That's a good name.
Games scored of goals in your first year, whatever the exact stat was. I don't recall exactly, but it's still hard to do, basically, in your first season, score 6 goals in 6 games consecutively. So I think that's deservingly so for an honorable mention as well.
Hell yeah. That's what I like to see. And that concludes our 3 stars of the week.
Just in time. Your goal was 8:15, and we're 8:15 and 30 seconds.
What I plan to plan, I guess. What a lucky one. Anything else, or
awesome. Well,
we're good to go?
I think I'm just going to go watch the Leaf game.
Sounds good. Leafs, they don't start for 2 hours.
What?
Tonight? They play Vancouver.
The game was at 7.
7 p.m.
Time's it at?
7 Pacific.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
On at 10?
It's on at 10, yeah.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, don't worry. After the first period, it'll be 4-0 after the first, so you can just shut it off.
Maybe.
All right, man.
All right, cool. Anyways.
Peace out.